We are back for another edition of Down on the Farm. She's Charlotte Varnes. I am Sam Jellinek. And Charlotte, we are now like 2 weeks into spring training. So far, nothing of import or really note, thankfully, has happened down in Clearwater yet. Phillies are making their East Coast swing at the current moment. We've gotten to see some prospects getting some big league games. We have kind of seen not as much as I think either of us would have liked, just due to the nature of spring training this year, where we're dealing with guys needing to get to the WBC. So, a lot more veterans. You wouldn't have expected them to play that first game in Dunedin, but then the first home game, you basically got almost a full grade A lineup. For you, boots on the ground, what's it been like finally getting back and, getting to see some live baseball?
Yeah, it's been awesome so far. I mean, I've been home at Florida in a week. I have not been to a game yet, so I'm really looking forward to getting to games this week. And I feel like I've gotten super lucky in that they're like mostly home games or in the Tampa area. So I will not be driving all over the state of Florida, which is something I'm used to growing up here. But it's been awesome. I loved getting out to spring training. It's just been a great opportunity. I think, as I talked about in the last podcast, I was really looking forward to seeing some of the younger guys. I mean, I've seen Justin and Painter play, obviously. Haven't seen Miller play. He's obviously sidelined right now with a sore back, but hopefully he will be back. It won't be too long before he's back. It doesn't seem like they're too concerned with it. So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing him when I come back to Clearwater later today into this week. But yeah, it's been great. Like you said, nothing super crazy has happened so far. Again, with people getting the WBC, there's a focus on getting those players some at bats. Like you said, really great first lineup for the first game at home. Those fans are pretty lucky. I remember going to spring training every year hoping for a lineup like that, and it's very, very rare to see that many great players in one game. But I think especially on this East Coast swing and especially going to the WBC, it's going to be a great opportunity to see a lot of these prospects. So I know I'm looking forward to that in the next week or so as people leave for their country camps.
Yeah, the Aiden Miller news was probably the closest thing that we got to something of substance. I was watching that game live when the Bryce Harper interview happened, and my jaw nearly hit the floor because I was like, I don't remember anybody having said that yet. So it was kind of funny that Bryce is the one to, drop that bomb.
Mhm.
But it's sad that that's the only thing me and Aiden Miller have in common is a sore back. So, oh well. Um, for Miller, though, they said, they don't really expect him. This will affect basically anything. But it is just something to, I think, keep in mind that over the past couple of years, he has dealt with some nagging stuff every now and again. Um, Pains of growing into a young body, I suppose. But that's just one thing. I always like to see how that develops over time, whether or not that's something that keeps on pestering a guy or not. Low back stuff can be tricky. It just stinks that to begin, we don't get to see him right away. I don't think that this will have any bearing whatsoever on how this year plays out for him. It's not like he was going to make the team out of camp. Not to be too much of a pessimist on that. But other than Miller, to me, the big first storyline of camp so far, and granted he did it in his first at bat, was Justin Crawford, man. That like first at bat, roping a double. It
Yeah,
was great.
he put the ball in the air. He did it. Like,
Take that,
um,
haters.
yeah, I know. Oh, yeah, quite a funny way to start, and I mean, and great for him. But yeah, it's interesting though. I obviously you saw him play a lot last year, and I feel like there was so much focus this winter on him lowering his hands. And
Mm-hmm.
when I was talking to him for the Eric Davis story, I was like, "Hey, like, I just have some other questions for you." And I asked him about that, and he's like, "So funny. Like, people keep saying that to me, and I keep seeing that everywhere. Like, I started working on that last year. Like, he started working on that in Lehigh Valley, and I feel like I." At the time when everyone was talking about it, I feel like I saw you post about it on social media that he like had been working on that at Lehigh Valley. And I definitely think that has helped him lift the ball a bit, but it's not. I think a lot of people were making it out to be like this huge change this winter, and he really was like, no, the defense is the big thing for me this winter. Like the other stuff came like last season. I mean, what was your perspective on that, seeing him make that change last year?
Yeah, I was actually listening back to some of the interviews from late in the season last year, and it was a conversation I had with our manager, Anthony Contreras, where I thought I had noticed Crawford's setup at the plate had changed. To me, the first thing that had struck me was because of how long and lanky he is to start last year, he basically took up the majority of the batter's box. And at first I had noticed, man, he looks like he's not as crouched into that stance and his feet are a little bit closer together. So I asked AC about it, and he said, yeah, that's part of it. And then also he said, as the year wore on, Crawford's hands started basically kind of shifting closer and closer to the front of his helmet, as opposed to what they like to have him with his hands back towards his ear, which is what Justin has talked about getting into his load. That's the really big part of helping him lift the baseball. Basically, with the idea being, if your hands are farther forward, you're going to be further down into the baseball, probably hit it into the ground. Hands are back, you're going to have a much better angle to attack the baseball and potentially lift it a little bit more. So I think that was part of the calculus for Justin. I like kind of how much quieter he is in the box a little bit as far as trying to get to his A swing. I think that's another big part of it, where he has such an unbelievable ability to put bat to ball. But you want him to use the best swing possible in order to drive the ball as much as he can. And that you only want to really see that ugly swing where he can foul off so many pitches when it's two strikes or pitches that he really has to battle against. And that's a fine line to walk, and it was a good sign against a major league lefty and Eric Lauer, first debut of the spring, that even with two strikes after he had battled, he got off a really good swing on a high fastball to drive that ball for a double. And to me, that's a step in the right direction, and that's all you can really want. He's hit leadoff almost, has it been every game so far? So he's getting plenty of plate appearances, and so far the early returns are great. I know Kevin Long has spoke about it a little bit. He takes the same tact that Adam Lynn took last year with Justin, which is, he's a fully prepared, very professional player who kind of has his routine and knows how he wants to go about it. So from the quote that I saw from Kevin Long is that he's just going to be hands off for the moment. Wait and see how things kind of develop with Justin, where they need to intervene, and you can just kind of let him play it out until he comes to you and says, "Hey, what do you say?"
Hmm. And I'd argue that's probably the right approach. I mean, obviously, you do not want to mess with a guy's swing. I mean, unless they're seeing something on a grand scale that needs to be fixed. But yeah, I mean, I'm really curious if Kevin Long does get more involved further into camp. And I think, as I was getting at earlier, like a lot of guys are leaving for the WBC. It already sort of feels like camp is about the kids, but I just think like once guys leave for those country camps, it is going to be so interesting to see the focus really shift onto the kids and see and get an opportunity to see what sort of work they're doing with them. I mean, hopefully by that point, Aiden Miller will be back. Hopefully Gabe Rinconis will be tracking toward playing in some Grapefruit League games. Painter, I feel optimistic Painter will pitch by the end of the week. He'll have some more games under his belt. And Justin, obviously, I am just curious to see. He's going to get a ton of at bats. Like you said, he's pretty much hit leadoff like almost every game this spring already, and we are only like 4 games and 3 games in. So yeah, I'm just curious to see how things progress, because it's so early in the camp, and because I just feel like it's going to be a great opportunity in the middle of camp for a lot of these kids to get attention, get a lot of at bats that maybe they wouldn't get because of how many great players the Phillies have who are ultimately leaving for the WBC.
I need to call attention to this, just because it might have flown under the radar. Philly Social posted a great video of testing the guy's grip strength. They got one of
Yes.
those things that you squeeze it and it tests how much pounds of force you create. And to put this in the proper context, Justin Crawford ripped like a 150. Tanner Banks was like at 140, or I think maybe, I don't want to discredit, like 160-ish maybe. Schwarber was like at 180, and then Gabe Rincones steps up to it and posts like a 205. Like, do you? I need. That's insane.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know how much hand strength goes into raw power or not. Frankly, I don't really care because that number is so out of this world. Gabe might be one of the strongest human beings I've ever been around. And I'm
It's
very
insane.
excited. Just seeing what he did after Schwarber did the grip strength, I was like, I didn't realize I put them on like the same tier of like raw man strength, but the fact that Gabe cleared him easily was like a very good reminder that he's in a different category, which is nuts.
Yeah, I mean there is like something to dream on there if he could hit lefties. It's not looking like that right now, but like I'm really curious to see how he performs like once we get back, and hopefully I'm getting back this week, hopefully get a chance to talk to him and see like if he's done any work hitting lefties. I mean, I'm assuming that is what he focused on this winter, and I think like just because of how last year went. But yeah, I saw the grip strength thing happening, and I was actually asked if I wanted to test my grip strength, and I'm glad I didn't because I would
Oh,
not want to know
come
how my
on.
numbers compare to these guys. Yeah, I was just like, I don't even know how that works. Um, no, yeah, I really looking forward to seeing Gabe play, and I think like obviously like there's a reason like we're doing this minor league podcast together. Like I'm just really interested in the guys in the minor leagues, and I just think it's going to be a great opportunity during the WBC for these some of these guys to get at bats. I mean, we've talked about some of the top prospects, but is there anyone who is a little lower down or who you're interested in seeing play, like particularly during games where maybe Schwarber and Harper and those guys are gone?
Mhm. Carson DeMartini. Carson finally got to Double A last year, as Ruben Amaro said on the broadcast out of Virginia Polytechnic, which
Oh my God.
there was like a brief second where I thought, does he think Virginia Polytechnic and Virginia Tech are different schools? There was like a very brief second, um, but he homered. He showed good power from the left
Mhm.
side. Phillies have been uh, kind of sticking him at shortstop. I like the approach the Phillies have with prospects, which is put them at the most premium position for as long as they possibly can. Because if it works, like in Aiden Miller's case, fantastic. If it doesn't, kind of no harm, no foul. So he's been playing a little bit of shortstop, left-handed bat. Will he ultimately have to move over to third base potentially? But as a college bat, we'll likely see him at AAA by the end of this year. And the Phillies, they're just always looking for additional infield depth. Him getting quite a few opportunities here early in spring. He's appeared in every game so far. Kind of that piques my interest because I always think stuff like that's intentional by the team to put them in as many major league games as possible. He's a non-roster invite as well. He has been interesting to me. Getting to see more of Arun Escobar has been fun.
Mhm.
I love his profile as a player, just a dude who mashes. A little bit more of a compact base to him as a second baseman, which is where he's going to end up being. But he's also appeared in every game so far. I think he could really make a push to AAA by the time the year ends, and then I'm pretty sure this is his platform year for the 40-man roster. So there's an off chance that by the time September rolls around, Phillies could add him just at that point and
Mhm.
see what they got. So those have been two, and then I know one we talked about before we started actually recording here was Brian Rincon. Fantastic glove first shortstop, has struggled to hit, had a big bases clearing double against the Nationals on Monday night. Another guy who I was a little bit surprised to get a non-roster invite, but he has. Phillies have tried to see what they can make of it. Um, you know, the glove first profile is always concerning to me. I'd rather teach a guy to field than rather teach them how to hit. But the Phillies have had plenty of examples over the past 15 years, guys like Freddie Galvis, Cesar Hernandez, who eventually became adequate enough with the bat that the glove carried them to a really long career. So those are three off the top of my head.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm interested to see Carson DeMartini play in person. I feel like I saw him in Reading, did not see him in a game, but I talked to him in Reading like right when he got called up last year. And I think like he's especially interesting as a college player. Again, the Phillies have not really emphasized college draft picks, but he ascended to Double A, has performed pretty well. So I'm definitely interested to see him as well. And I did a big story on Keaton Anthony last summer. I'm curious to see Keaton play. I know he's already seen plenty of playing time, but I feel like I didn't see him much in Lehigh Valley last year because
Mm-hmm.
like he obviously ended the season with like a string of injuries. So I think he is one player I'm looking forward to see, especially because like he plays first base. I mean, he it is obviously going to be a difficult journey for him trying to ascend to the major leagues with the Philly, playing pretty much only playing first base and DHing. But he'll have plenty of reps in the spring with Schwarber and Harper gone. So I'm definitely looking forward to watching him play.
I need to back this up for a second. I had no idea. Like, it didn't even register. DeMartini stole 45 bags last year.
Oh my God, I didn't realize that
Like,
either. Yeah, that's pretty
like,
impressive.
like that's not not an insignificant. Like that's a very significant
Yeah,
number. He stole 8 the
yeah.
year prior, and
I'm
he he
actually
he was drafted.
wow.
I mean, when he was drafted out of Virginia Tech, he was a bat first profile uh, as a corner infielder. And now I got to look back and did he even steal this many back in college? The most bags he swiped in college was actually in the Cape Cod League. He stole 15 in 36 games. He didn't steal more than 9 with Virginia
Okay.
Tech.
Okay, well, that's a great
That's
story idea. Thank you for bringing that up.
that is
No,
fascinating.
I'll
It,
have to ask him about that. I mean, that just like it's so interesting to me too, because I just feel like the Phillies are a very fast organization.
that's
I
what I was
mean, you
gonna
look at him
say.
and yeah, you look at him, you look at Justin, you look at Aiden. I mean, obviously Trey at the major league level. I mean, this raises the broader question of like if this is what they're seeking when they're drafting players, or if this is something that they're able to develop. Because I just, wow, I to have Carson DeMartini steal 45 bases, that's pretty crazy.
I think part of it is, from what I see with the IronPigs, is they push guys to steal bases. Not to do it with reckless abandon, but to learn how to steal bases, especially with the younger guys like DeMartini and Miller. You know, obviously Crawford had the built-in speed to begin with, but nobody was talking about Aiden Miller as a base stealer when he was drafted.
Mhm.
Same with Carson DeMartini here. I think there's a part of it that's just at the lower levels. Hey, try to steal some bases. Figure out if you have the instincts for this. Because up until a certain point on the baseball ladder, you can steal bases just with instincts. And maybe that's what we're seeing here. Maybe he just has added a ton of speed as well. But that's I'm my mind's like blown that I somehow didn't notice that. Um,
I mean, I knew he had a good year, but I didn't know it was that good on the base paths. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
yeah, maybe it's just a collective thing. 'Cause, I mean, another guy who's appeared in every spring training game so far, his calling card is speed. Dante Nori. You know, you
Hmm.
just get surrounded by these guys stealing bags, and you're like, I want a piece of the pie too. I guess
Hmm.
that's really cool. Um, let's talk.
Fascinating.
Go ahead.
No, I was just commenting on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
uh, we'll talk on Keaton Anthony here for a moment, since you brought him up. Uh, for those who missed last year, he ended up missing about the final 2 months of the season. Was a little bit of a groin hamstring issue. Prior to that, he had posted well with IronPigs. He's posted well everywhere that he's gone. High average, powers about league average, plays a good first base, but like you said, Charlotte, that's a profile that becomes very tricky, especially in a Phillies organization where Bryce Harper is going to be here for the foreseeable future. Uh,
Mhm.
what that means as far as putting him in other spots, I don't know. Another guy in that same position, Felix Reyes. The Phillies have put him more in the outfield than I anticipated so far. His body screams first base only, but they've put him in the outfield. That's an experiment that they'll be trying here. I feel like that's got to be a hard feeling for any corner infield prospect in the Philly system
Mhm.
who is trending towards first, knowing this a long-term future here in this organization is not great.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, to your point about Felix Reyes, like it's funny if any of the athletic readers are listening to this, I see your comments. People are commenting about Felix Reyes all the time. They want to know a lot about Felix Reyes. And maybe I will talk to him this week and tell you guys more about Felix Reyes. But I just think it's really interesting because I think there is something to dream on there. He is like there's something to dream on at the plate. I again like he doesn't really play a premium position. I don't know how much of a guy he is. He is not like very high on any of the prospect rankings, but it's just funny. I think fans are very enamored with Felix Reyes because he just hits. He hits and hits, and ultimately, like that is not the only thing that can get you to the major leagues. But no, I think it's interesting too because I agree with you. He definitely more has a first base body type rather than an outfield body type.
The thing that concerns me the most with Felix is last year his numbers with Reading and then 6 games with the Iron Pigs. Obviously
Mhm.
fantastic. Eastern League MVP, won a batting title, hit 335. All that's fantastic. It was a significant step forward. Like you love seeing guys making steps year after year. in 2024 with Jersey Shore, and granted, Jersey Shore is not a great place to hit, but he was age 23 at high A, which is a touch old for the level. Not terribly, but just a touch. 85 games slash 243, 280, 375. That's very borderline non-prospect status.
Yeah.
To then go to Reading the next year and hit 100 points higher is, no matter what you make of Reading being a bandbox and how the ball flies there, that's an unbelievable jump. Is it one that can be
Mhm.
sustained? That'll be the question. His numbers in Winter League, the Dominican Winter League, was back to more of his career numbers: 246, 286, 474. I like that the power stayed. Obviously,
Mhm.
the hurdle for Felix is he does not walk. And with that profile, trying to hit that much is, not to say it's a fool's errand, but it's really tough. Um,
Yeah.
so, the numbers from last year, the MVP, will stick out to most fans. How that translates going forward is, I'm skeptical of it. He'll be with the IronPigs, I have no doubt, to begin the season, probably play some
Mhm.
outfield, play some first, and we'll see if he can, just continue to swing it. But that kind of jump, especially over a full season, would have been one thing if he did
Mhm.
it for half a season with Reading, moved up to the Iron Pigs, and then struggled a good bit. But he did it for a full season, so I'm willing to
Mhm.
sip a little bit of that Kool-Aid. Um, but that is a long, long journey for a guy, you know. I'm trying to think when he signed. If he signed 20 or 2019, and then didn't get to play baseball until 2021 thanks to the pandemic. Uh,
Yeah.
his numbers up until last year with Reading left a lot to be desired, and that's hard to parse through when you have such a track record of this is who this guy was, and now
Mhm.
here's who this guy now is. Who will he be? Is that's why people get paid more money than me to figure that out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. And that was like a way more detailed way of my saying, I don't know if he's a guy. I mean, I just like
I get paid by the
I
word. It's
like
okay.
yeah, that's true. No, I totally agree with you. And I mean, Philly's defensive state in the outfield is already like not great. I mean, I am not ba like I'm not banking on them, even if he has like a really great year in AAA. I'm just like not
No.
banking on a call up at any point. Like especially with him being more of a first baseman than an outfielder, that's just like not a move I see them making. And I feel like they've already cultivated like some great outfield depth, like with Pedro Leon, Brian De La Cruz. I feel like we talked about that a bit last episode. Like that's just something that they've been able to cultivate. So I don't, even later in the season, if he's like really mashing, like I feel like similarly to Keaton, he's just blocked. He's like in a pretty difficult position to ascending to the major league roster because of his skill set.
Yeah. No. And really, the only way you see forward for both of them or any right-handed hitter at this juncture is being a corner outfielder, and being able to platoon. Obviously, Otto Kemp's got that locked up for the time being. Uh,
Mhm.
you know, one thought that popped into my mind, was Johan Rojas still technically qualifies as a prospect. I think maybe yes, no. I don't care.
He's young. We'll give it to him.
There is a really weird reality, and I hope it does not come to pass, because the way it would tie my brain in knots, where come June or July, say Crawford struggles, and Johan's hitting like 330 at AAA. Like, there's no way, right? That is a there's no conversation there.
I mean, I don't, this is a conversation I've had with people because it is just like the question beneath all of this is like, what if Justin Crawford's skill set just really doesn't work? What if he's really, really struggling? And I mean, I think they're definitely going to give him a runway to struggle. They understand like that it's probably going to happen. But I mean, at the same time, they've tried to challenge him and he is yet to be challenged. But again, he has yet to face challenge like the major leagues. But Rojas is their best option at center field aside from him. I mean, he has just not become what they wanted to play, obviously, but his center field is so elite. I think that if Justin had some really prolonged struggles, he is the natural choice. That's a really, really tough call to make. I just It's hard to fathom right now, especially like when it's spring training. Everyone's really optimistic right now. They're optimistic on Justin's skill set and playing small ball and that he's going to become the defender that he wants to be in center field. But yeah, it is like the question underneath all of this is if he does really, really struggle, it does feel like Rojas is the next best choice. And to me, like that's not great. And I know I just said they've cultivated all this outfield depth, but it's really on the corners. It's not in center field.
Yeah, and to put a huge caveat on it, I'm talking like if Crawford's struggling by June or July, and you very rightfully brought up the amount of runway the Phillies are going to give Crawford here. The Phillies gave Johan Rojas 250 games. They stuck around with a guy who over 120 games in 2024 had an OPS plus of 67, and then ran him back out last year to an OPS plus of 57. And they were willing to put up with that for a long time. I do not think Justin Crawford is going to be anywhere close to that bad. He has a
Mm-hmm.
very high floor as far as what his skill set can provide. He does not have the swing and miss that Johan Rojas has. So I don't think you're going to be looking at them panicking on Crawford after 50 or 75 games. I think it would legitimately take seasons at this point.
Yeah.
Given, as you mentioned, the only other option as far as center field goes is Johan Rojas or moving Marsh to center, which that experiment, I don't want to call it experiment, but the idea of Marsh being an everyday center fielder seems a lot less palatable than him being in left. So take
Totally.
that for what it's
Totally.
worth. Uh, we've talked a lot about the hitters early on pitching wise. We haven't seen too many pitching prospects. The closest one that we have seen is Yoniel Curet. Finally saw him against the Nationals. Scoreless inning, a walk, two strikeouts. Wasn't anything, jumping off the page. Sat
Mhm.
95. Reports coming in when he was traded from the Rays, obviously was more high 90s. A starter that's been woefully inefficient. We saw him when Durham came to Lehigh Valley last year. Stuff's fantastic. Uh, what's your gut and your read early on here where he fits in? He's on the 40, so we'll clump him in with the rest of the other 40-man roster guys who are vying for one of the final bullpen spots.
Yeah, I think he's going to need a little bit more time. I would not be surprised at all for him to make his debut later on in the summer, especially as like the wear and tear of the season sets in. And I feel like one of those last two bullpen spots, they're for sure going to want to have an optionable guy there. So I feel like I could see him taking that later on. I just think at this moment in time, I think the Phillies are going to prioritize some of the older guys who have a little bit more experience. I mean, for those one of the last two spots, I personally think the other one is going to be Kyle Backus. He has just been like totally puzzling people. He looks great, but I think they're going to prioritize like a Max Azar, Seth Johnson, Chase Shugart, those kind of guys in those spots. But with Corrette, like you said, nothing really jumping off the page yesterday. I think he just needs a bit more time in the minor leagues. He no doubt will be in AAA this year with the Phillies, and they really did like his stuff when they traded for him, and they do see him being a reliever. He's spent some time as a starter in the past. But I think they feel confident about what they have in him as a reliever. I think it just needs a bit more time to develop.
Yeah, and as far as other prospects, and really, Corrette's the only looking through the box scores so far, and I apologize if I end up being wrong here. He's the only top 30 guy who's thrown for the Phillies in a game so far. Um,
Yeah, I think that's right.
we're still waiting on, obviously, Painter will throw at some point. Gene Cabrera
Mhm.
is a guy I'm excited to see. He should front the IronPigs rotation this year. And Wildly is, I don't want to say wildly, but is probably the most major league ready starting pitching prospect the Phillies have this side of Painter.
Mhm.
So this is an important year for Gene because he just spent an entire year with Reading last year, pitched well, was fine, but that was his first full year on the 40. So he's down
Mhm.
an option year. Moises Chassé just had a full option year wasted on injury, which they'll probably
Yeah.
petition and get back down the road. So starting pitching wise can get hairy. A guy who's not on a lot of prospect lists, but is interesting as far as left-handed depth. Andrew Walling, non-roster invite.
Mhm.
The Phillies typically will invite one or two lefties to camp. That people are like, "Who's that?" Last year was Tristan Garnett, who I still actually really like. really funky. But Walling's the guy this year who's put up good numbers in the high minors. Will probably be in the Pigs bullpen at some point. Mid 90s with fastball. And if you're left-handed and can throw mid 90s, you're going to get a lot of chances. Like you said, Backus probably looking at the bullpen already is in there. But the Phillies, with Walling as well, there's a little bit of left-handed depth.
hmm Yeah, I mean, Walling has been on my list to talk to because I feel like anytime I've asked people like, hey, like who should I keep an eye on to be fast rising in the minor leagues, his name always comes up. I think the Phillies really like what they've seen from him. And yeah, like you said, I do think they have some left-handed options. I mean, none are quite like Matt Strom, obviously, but that is a trade the Phillies obviously were willing to make. And I think Backus is really interesting. He doesn't have prospect status anymore. But I mean, I watched the Phillies hitters face him in his first live BP, and it was like they were confounded. Like it is like his release, but it's crazy. Like he's a sidearmer. He is one of the like lowest release points in Major League Baseball among lefties, and just like in general last year, it's like totally confounding. So I see him taking that spot. Obviously, things can change, and I mean if he gets injured, if anything else happens over the summer, I feel like Andrew Walling, like I said, like they think he could be a fast riser if they're looking for a third lefty, which the Phillies are not set on having a third lefty. I mean, it's always nice to have one, but from the way they've been talking about it, I just don't think they feel like they need one. If they see something that impresses them, they'll have one. Right now, I think Backus has impressed them. I feel like he'll hold that spot, and it could be Walling's spot later on in the summer if they need to back option Backus or if he hits the injured list or something else happens. I feel like Walling is a great fast rising candidate for that spot.
Yeah, we talked about it in the last episode. Just the where the Phillies are at prospect wise and depth wise. There's a lot more on the relief pitching side versus the starting pitching side. You know, some guys later in camp that I would love to see throw in major league games just because it would be fun and it would get the fan base absolutely riled up. To see Gage Wood and Cade Obermueller throw in
Mhm.
major league games would be great. But that's kind of where the Phillies starting pitching wise with prospects kind of falls into a black hole is between
Yeah.
Painter and Cabrera and then Wood and Obermueller. Everything else in between is very much, not a great feeling. And there was a great article and study put out by Baseball America, which I think provides some really awesome context here, which basically has shown that since 2012, so about 14 years here, the number of innings or plate appearances that it takes a prospect to reach the majors has fallen dramatically by like 25%. Uh, and over the past 5 years, since the minors have contracted, that's really ramped up a good deal. Now, in that time, the Phillies really haven't taken too many college arms high in the draft. So we haven't gotten a chance to see what it would be like, specifically a starting pitcher. Orion Kerkring, to me, is a special case. As a reliever, you can fly through the system, you know, not easier, but there's a better pathway to it. Starters, they tend to be, more kid gloves with it. But the Phillies might be in a
Mhm.
special case here where, not getting Wood or Obermueller to the bigs this year, but having them taste AAA by the end of this year is probably, the pie in the sky goal. Have you gotten a read at all, given that neither or Wood ended up throwing one game because he was beating down the door to do it last year? Have you gotten a
Yeah.
read on where the Phillies kind of see both of them, or even where they might start out this year? Yeah, I'm assuming at least high A, right?
Yeah, I did not get a read on that while I was there, but I would agree with you. I don't see either of them like ascending to the majors this season because I think the Phillies are especially unless the Phillies like really have a need, not if that has happened, something has gone really wrong, really, really wrong. But no, I think especially with Gage Wood, if you look at it, he had the shoulder impingement last season and again, like he only pitched the one inning because he was like literally knocking on the door. That's what they love about him. He is just like has this great attitude, super enthusiastic, super intense. Like the Phillies just love that about him. But I think they want to be cautious with him this year because he has that injury history. He obviously only pitched one inning last year. I don't think they're going to be pushing anything. I would say same goes for Obermueller. Again, I think the Phillies are, again, you and I were talking about it before the episode. They have really, really thin starting depth. Again, something will have gone really wrong if either of these players are ascending in the majors and starting games for the Phillies, I think, at any point this season. But I definitely think it's because of the strong rotation the Phillies have in the major, they can afford more time with these guys in the minors and make sure that they're not rushing them through and not increasing the risk of injury. But I mean, to the point of the study, I obviously like so much of that data is because these college players are rushing through. And I mean, like everyone is a different history, everyone has a different story, organizations have different philosophies. I just
Cough,
think the
cough,
Phillies,
Angels.
yeah, yeah. Oh my God, the Angels. Oh yeah. It's scary. I worry about injuries, and I think the Phillies worry about injuries too, and especially again with Gage Wood having that history, I think the Phillies are going to be more cautious with these guys than anything, and I'm sure they would love to see them knock on the door at AAA this season, but I think the Phillies can afford to be cautious, and again, unless something has gone really, really wrong.
Yeah, no, that's the tack that I've taken with it. In the Phillies' recent lack of starting pitching prospects runs adjacent to the fact that they have so many guys on the 40 or close to the 40 who are relief pitching prospects. And most of those guys, every great relief pitcher was once a failed starter. Alex McFarland falls into that category. Former
Mhm.
guys like Michael Mercado, obviously Yoniel Curet, Seth Johnson, all fall into that category where they've, shifted into a reliever role because of that. And it's Corret's the guy for me this year that I'll focus on with it. But Seth Johnson and Michael Mercado were in the same position last year, where they almost got forced into the reliever role out of necessity, where it was
Mhm.
Phillies have 5 or 6 starters who have stayed healthy for the majority of the past 3 or 4 years, and it's, well, if we're gonna use you, it's gonna have to be in the bullpen, so that's where we'll put you for now. You
Mhm.
just you get scared over a longer period of time where you don't have that starting depth that eventually it will come back to bite you. But the Phillies have been fortunate that they can trade from that position of strength, trading George Klassen, trading Mick Abel, trading Sam Altigari as well. You know, I think we look at it potentially too much in the present of, man, the Phillies don't have any starting pitching prospects. I'll give them some leeway and some faith that they have developed at least enough starting
Mhm.
pitching to trade.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And speaking of Mick, great start yesterday. I don't know if you
Oh,
saw.
I
I
didn't
saw
see
his
it.
pitch profiler. Yeah, um, he looks good for his first spring start. Yeah, I like you said, like the Phillies have just been able to afford to deal from that position, and like if Mick Abel were still here, then he's blocked.
Yeah,
Like I understand why they're dealing from this position because it's what's the point in being the seventh starter in the majors for the Phillies when they've had like such great health luck? They have such great starters in the majors. They're not really optioning any starters ever. I understand why they're not really cultivating that depth. And I mean, you and I were talking about it before the episode. Like, I just think a swingman, obviously, this kind of strays from the prospect conversation, but like, I think signing someone to more of a swingman role who has that history to be in the rotation in Lehigh Valley, I think would be pretty wise. The Phillies have yet to do that so far, but I don't know. Right now, like you mentioned, Gene Cabrera, you're also looking at like Bryce Wilson, Tucker Davidson, like that's sort of their starting depth right now. And like it's not great. But again, like you said, the Phillies have been lucky to be able to deal from this position. And they like what's the point in like Mick Abel being the Phillies like seventh starter on the depth chart? Like Joan Duran is like much more valuable to them. It's just now it feels a little bit shaky because the Phillies have not been lucky. I think they do a lot of things to keep their pitchers healthy, and but I think it is a little nerve wracking, especially in a year when several of them are going to the WBC and Zach Wheeler is coming back off injury. I think the lack of starting depth is a little. I think it's one of the biggest issues with this team that like we're not talking about.
yeah. It's the benefit, like you said, of them being so healthy is that it's the elephant in the room that you don't have to talk about because it hasn't actually materialized yet. It's just a fear that it will, and how much anxiety you feel about that, and is how much the Phillies front office feels like they can stomach that and then lean on some of the prospects is ultimately what it is. But
Mhm.
the final thing we'll touch on here really quick is only because they moved up in the rankings. From 30 to 26, Yahoo Sports, the Cespedes Family Barbecue guys, put together a great list compiling 26 and under power rankings, basically taking a look at every organization and power ranking them by their talent of 26 years and under. Obviously, weighting it more towards if you have guys in the big leagues 26 and under contributing, as opposed to the prospects. Phillies last year were dead last; they were 30th. They are 26th this year. The Cespedes Family Barbecue guys really like the Phillies hitters, prospect wise. Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford, Gabriel Conez, Otto Kemp, or Sid Crawford. Pitching wise, like we've been talking about, is where the dearth lies. You have Ryan Kerkering and Andrew Painter are the only two 26 and under pitchers projected to be on the Phillies active roster, which is nuts. Like we
It
said,
feels
it's a
insane.
product of what's happened. And then you look at the prospect pitchers that they've listed. Moises Chassé, he's not going to pitch this year. Gage Wood has appeared in one professional game. Gene Cabrera, and then Alex McFarland. So I think that's pretty representative of where the Phillies are at, and they, not to say this has happened by design, but it is a series of dominoes that you knew were going to fall.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And it's funny, like I read this article before, but I wasn't really looking at the scores that they gave them. Yeah, this is not great. And it feels hard to fathom because some of the guys just feel younger. I'm like, wow, Max Lazar really isn't 26 and under. And I mean, maybe he's not in the projections. I don't know. But yeah, it's kind of stunning. Again, this is how it's been constructed with how many prospects they've dealt in order to have such a great major league roster. But yeah, it feels crazy. And I mean, I'm pretty young, and I think from my perspective, it was pretty wild to go from covering the A's, where I was like, everyone is my age, and I walked in the Phillies clubhouse, and everyone is a child, and everyone is 10 years of service time. And obviously, that is an asset in so many ways because the Phillies have been good for so long, and a lot of that is a product of having a veteran roster. But I think part of that is like, I think there's just some excitement this year with having these prospects around. I think they're definitely, it can be a good thing to have youth infusion, and that it feels so cliche to say that, but everyone's talking about the Phillies running it back, whatever. I genuinely think that bringing in Justin Crawford and bringing Andrew Painter and like, if when Miller comes up this season, I think that will do a lot of good things for this team because that is shaking up the lineup. Like that is changing it. I believe that they all have skill sets that will help the major league team, and I just think it will be great to like have some young perspective in the clubhouse, but from guys like who are just so excited to be there and so hungry. And no, like, obviously there's pressure with debuting for a team like the Phillies that's a little different than debuting for a team like the A's, but I think these Justin and Painter and all of them, I think they embrace that, and I'm really excited to see it this season, and I genuinely think those guys will help. But yeah, it feels insane there are so few young guys on this roster.
Do you think it makes any kind of a difference that Justin and Andrew, from the time I spent with them last year and now everybody's seen it in the clubhouse so far this spring training, they are just like the consummate professionals type of thing. Like you don't really get the
Mhm.
sense that they're rookies. That it would almost somehow be even more exciting for everybody if they were like more wide eyed about it. Like they're gonna be excited about it no matter what, but they don't have that like when Pete Crow Armstrong came up, that's a different kind of
Mhm.
personality,
Yeah.
and you sometimes just have rookies where you know that they're rookies. These two guys, you don't feel like, oh man, they are super young
Mhm.
or anything. They're just pros.
Yeah, seriously. And I think so much that, I mean, if you look at Painter specifically, he has endured so much pressure for years, especially because of how he was performing in camp a few years ago and being the Phillies' top prospect. Like, I think so much of that comes from that. And I don't know if the term like forced to grow up early, I don't know if that's the right term. I think the Phillies really liked his maturity in general when they drafted him, but like it does not, especially with how long, and again, I'm new to covering the Phillies, but how long everyone in this organization has been talking about Painter and all the fans have been talking about Painter. Like I think that's also part of why it doesn't feel like he's new because it is like people have been talking about him for so long. And then like when you look at Justin, like you said, like they're both consummate professionals, but like Justin's just so great, and like you get a sense. I mean, again, like we talk so much about like his dad and how much he learned about being from around his dad and his dad's friends as a young kid. But seriously, I think that's it. Like he is able to handle himself so well. I think because of the habits he saw when he was super young, he gets it. Like it does not feel like they're 22. Like it and almost 23, I think, for Painter. But like it seriously does not feel like that. And I think part of that is just like the way they act and how long, again, we've been talking about these players too.
Yeah, no, it'll be something interesting to follow as the season goes on. Kind of, how they fit into that dynamic. Everybody likes them. They've acquiesced to everybody. It's been a really cool thing to see so far. But to me, that's always part of it is when guys go up, how they immediately mesh, how they fall in, and that youthful energy that everybody looks to from them, how they provide it in a way that's meaningful to the team outside of just, being the kid around.
Yeah.
You need to walk that fine line of, being excited but not wide-eyed about it. So,
Yeah.
that'll just about wrap it up, I think, for everything we wanted to cover for this episode. Looking ahead, like 2.5 weeks from now, probably be. I thought we might have our first cuts by this point. We haven't. First cuts at camp will probably have come and gone, but maybe not with the WBC. I guess those are de facto cuts. I don't know. What are you excited to see in those 2 weeks when we talk next?
I think I'm just excited to get back. I think I'm looking forward to walking around the complex because I know last time I was like, really can't wait to see Gage Wood throw. And I've seen Gage walking around, but I've like not really like paid much attention to the minor league side of things. So I think one of my goals when I go is not just the games, it's just to check out the minor league side of things and see how some of the guys that aren't non-roster invites are doing and what's going on over there.
Yeah, that's a huge thing I'll point out. If anybody, I'm
Mhm.
assuming if you're listening to this podcast, there's a half decent chance you'll try to make a trip down to spring training at some point. Cannot recommend enough just walking around the backfields in the complex. If you haven't been before, it's just on the other side of Baycare. It's on the third base side, if my memory's
Yes. Yeah.
correct. You literally there's just small little cart paths, and you can walk around and see everything. It's a great
Mhm.
idea to get a sense of what goes on during spring training. For me, I went when I was like 10 or 11. I scalped like 15 baseballs and God knows how many autographs. They had to kick me out at one point because I may have been like stealing baseballs as opposed to like being
Oh my
given
God.
them. But it was great. Don't worry. But yeah, I can't recommend that experience enough for anybody.
Yeah.
For
No,
me,
the amount of baseballs I have in my house from spring training is crazy. Like it is like they're just lying around, and who's gonna tell you not to? You're a kid. You can pick it
yeah,
up.
exactly. So that's what I love about it. If anybody has a chance to go with family, with friends, it's just such a baseball experience. It's great to be a part of. Next 2 weeks, I'm excited to see Painter and Cabrera throw. Those are my big things. Obviously, Painter, there's been a lot of talk. I'm ready to see how he backs it up on the field for the first time and just absolutely pour through and look too deep into his StatCast data. So,
Yay. Can't wait.
yay! Oh, can't wait for it. Okay. Well, Charlotte, that'll about do it. Got anything else?
I don't think so. Just looking forward to my 3 hour drive to Clearwater later today.
Hey, you can listen to this podcast on repeat and boost our views.
That that's so true. So true.
Okay, thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks, guys.